This is Monday, January 30th, my pre-trip run-through. So on the air brake system leaks test, the first thing I'm going to do in the seat is to make sure my seatbelt is fastened, and then I'm going to turn the bus to the night run position. From here, I'm going to start the engine and make sure the air is applied to the doors and the doors are closed. So make sure the doors are closed. Now I'm going to start with the air brake system leaks test. I'm going to check and make sure that the air pressure gauge is at about 120 psi. Once it's reached that, I'm going to turn the bus to the off position, and then I'm going to turn it back into night run. Next, I'm going to put my foot firmly on the service brake and release the parking brake. What I'm looking for here is to make sure that the air pressure gauge doesn't drop more than 3 pounds in one timed minute, and the bus will not roll. So when that minute is up, the system has passed the test, and I can reapply the parking brake, which means to restart the bus. So the next test is the low air warning test. So with the bus still in night run, I'm going to start the engine, and what I'm looking for, or what I'm going to do, is fan the service brake down until the low air warning light and buzzer activate. They should come on by 60 psi and must come on by 55 psi. And what I'm going to do right here is pump the service brake, pump, pump, pump until the low air warning light and buzzer activate. So the low air warning light and buzzer activated at about 80 psi, so the system has passed the test. Now I'm going to make sure that the pressure goes back up to 90 psi. The next test I'm going to do is the parking brake test. So with the parking brake applied, I'm going to put my foot on the service brake, and I'm going to shift the bus into drive, and then I'm going to gently press the throttle. So what I'm looking for here is to make sure there is a rock in the bus. That tells me that the brake has held. So I press the throttle, and so the parking brake holds. So the parking brake held, and the system has passed the test. So the next test I'm going to do is the service brake test. So the bus is still in drive, and I'm going to release the parking brake. Then I'm going to pull forward about 5 miles per hour. And what I'm going to be looking for is to make sure the bus doesn't pull in either direction, especially when I apply the service brake. The service brake worked, and the system has passed the test. So what's really important here is to make sure that the bus is secured, and set the parking brake to on, and check that the bus is secured, and also the transmission is in neutral. Here I then unbuckle and go to the back of the bus, and that's where I'm going to go right now. So walk around to the back of the bus right here. So now that I'm at the back of the bus, this is the engine compartment as I continue on. So the engine compartment, the first thing I'm going to do is open up the compartment head, and then I'm going to go to the ignition select and make sure that it's on the center, in the center off position. Then I'm going to move over here to the left, the coolant. So the coolant, make sure it's at the proper level. The oil level is at the proper and required level. Next, we're going to go to the back, which is the power steering, and make sure that it's at the proper level as well. Next, we're going to make sure that the alternator is secure, and I'm going to grab and shake and make sure there's no missing nuts or bolts, and make sure that the wires are not broken, burnt, or exposed, BBE. Then we're going to go to the belts, which is right here, and we're going to make sure that the belts have no more than 1/2 to 3/4 deflection. There's no cuts, cracks, and or frays. Next, I'm going to grab and shake the air compressor. This is the air compressor. And to make sure that there is no missing nuts and bolts. And no fluid and or leaks. So at the bottom part here we're going to cover FLED, which is frame, leaks and hoses, exhaust system, and drive shaft, right? So the F is for frame, and I'm checking to make sure it's not cracked, bent, or broken, and there's no illegal welds and missing bolts. Now I'm going to look up under the vehicle and make sure that there is no accumulation of 14. Okay, make sure that there's no accumulation and I'm continuing. There's no accumulation of fluids on the ground under the bus for leaks. I'm also looking for at my hoses to make sure they're not cut, cracked, or crimped, and not leaking. Moving on, I'm checking to make sure that the exhaust system is securely mounted and has no missing nuts and bolts. Also to make sure that there's no cracks, holes, and or soot trails in the exhaust. Finally, we go to the drive shaft in the back of the engine compartment. I'm going to make sure that it's not cracked, bent, or broken, and I'm going to lift up the U-joints and make sure there is no free play movements and joints are lubricated. So now that that is done, we're going to put the kill switch back on the front, lift it up and put it in the front position. We're going to close the panel. We're going to come around here to the rear curbside area, and we're going to cover the access panel. This is the access panel. We want to make sure that it's closed and securely latched. Coming over to the mud flaps, we want to make sure that it's secured, mounted, not torn, and no more than 10 inches off the ground, which is the mud flaps right there, right? And so for the rear wheels, there are 7 items: the duals, the tread depth, the inflation, the sidewalls, rims, lug nuts, and the hub seal. The duals are not touching and no debris between the tires. For the tread depth, make sure it's not less than 232 in the rear and 432 in the front. Inflation is to make sure you check with an air gauge, and there is the inflation. And the sidewalls, no abrasions, bulges, cuts, ABC. And the rims, no welds, cracks, dents in the bead flange, and no distortion of the bolt holes. Lug nuts, check. Lug nuts are tight with a lug wrench and none are missing, and no metal filings and rust trails. For the hub seal, which is right there, is at the proper level, no oil and or grease leaking. So we're going to cover the rear and front suspension equal mats, which is mounts, U-bolts, MUATs, mounts, U-bolts, airbags, torque arm, and shock absorber. The mounts is not missing. The mount is not missing mounting bolts, and no missing or cracked bushings, hangers, brackets, or shackles. The U-bolts is not missing nuts, not broken, cracked U-bolts, and for the airbags is not deflated, no audible air leaks, and other components rubbing and touching. For the torque arm, grab and shake, no missing nuts and bolts, not cracked, bent, or broken. And the shock absorber, finally, is to grab and shake, no missing, worn, loose, or cracked mounting brackets, bushings, and no leaking fluid. So, for the brakes, which is Schedule L. So brakes, remove the valves, the slack adjusters. We're using a Gillig, so The slack edge adjusters or the push rods, with brakes released, the push rod does not move more than 1 inch when pulled by hand. It's not bent, no missing or damaged parts such as clevis pins, cotter keys, and snap rings. For the chambers, grab and shake, no missing nuts and bolts, no dents, cracks, and or audible air leaks. For the hoses, grasp hoses and look for any clean threads showing. There's no audible air leaks, not cut, crimped, cracked, or frayed. For the drums, no cracked, deep grooves, and oil. For the linings, not cracked, broken, no oil, and are at least 1 inch thick. The fuel tank is right here. So the fuel tank, where'd it go? So the fuel tank, the cap is tight. The tank is not missing or no missing and or loose mounting brackets, nuts, bolts, and pins, and no leaks from the tank or lines. So we're going to come around to the front of the vehicle. So the front of the vehicle is the power steering. So we're going to talk about the power steering box. So the power steering box, there's no missing or loose nuts and bolts, not cracked, bent, or leaking. And the hoses, no leaking fluid, cracks, cuts, or abrasions. The steering linkage is there's no missing nuts, bolts, cotter pins, and keys. Also, connecting links, arms, and rods are not worn, bent, cracked. Joints and sockets are well lubricated. All right. So the interior of the bus, we're going to come around over here on the interior of the bus, and we're going to look here. And for the passenger entry, we're going to make sure that the doors open and close. Doors open and close. Okay, open and close. And we're going to make sure they open and close. The entryway is clear of debris and treads are not loose, worn to cause trips. The handrails are secure. Handrails are secure. Grab and shake. And then the ramp. Ramp is fully retracted and stowed. No leaking, damaged, and missing parts. So in the passenger seating, we're going to come inside the bus here. Passenger seating, we're going to grab and shake to check that the seat frames are firmly attached to the floor. On the emergency exits, we're going to point out the rear one here. So the rear one here says, point out and read the description. So if you're going to use this, then you want to push the knob to open and then push up, right? You're going to come down to the middle of the bus, and here, this is one where you're going to just break the window, pull down on the knob, and push out on the door. On the left side over here, you're going to lower the handle and then push out to use these side windows. I believe there's 2 exits, hatches, and then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 window escapes along with 1 door escape here. All right. So we're going to come over to the emergency equipment, and we're going to open it up here, and we're going to look in, and we're going to see that there's the fire extinguisher, which is present and charged. The warning devices are the 3 reflective triangles, and then the circuit breakers are equipped. We are equipped with circuit breakers, not fuses. All right. All right. All right. So then we're gonna come around to the seatbelt. We're gonna wrap this up. All right. We're on the home stretch here. So for the seatbelt, we would put the seatbelt on and tug it, and then make sure that it's fastened securely, and that it's not cut or frayed. On the instrument panel, we're going to do this. The oval is set the door to handle to the front position, so we set that open and switch control to night run. We're going to switch it to night run, and then I'm going to switch it to night run, and then we're going to start the engine. When you start the engine, you want to flip the release valve to the on position, and then we're going to close the doors. Okay, so we're going to now cover the oval, OVAAL. Okay, oil pressure check, voltmeter, ABS, air pressure gauge, lighting indicators. So this is all the instrument panel. So for the oil pressure check, up here, this will be the oil pressure check. The light and signal turned on and then went off. The ABS light and signal turned on and went off. The voltmeter, which is here, the voltmeter, the battery charging, the gauge is in normal range. The air pressure gauge is operating and the pressure is rising. Okay, and then the lighting indicators are all here at the top. And then the lighting indicators are also on the floor here. So there is your left turn signal, right turn signal, the high beam, low beam, and that's where your microphone is as well. And then for here, this is the four-way light. Also make sure that the four-way hazard, that's the four-way hazard. Okay, so the clearance is all the clearance above is in good working condition and working properly. And then there's the three reflectors point to the front and the side of the bus is amber and the rear is red. Okay, so then the examiner is going to come by to the side of the window and he's going to explain the clearance lights and the hand signals. Okay, so we want to make sure that the hand signals for the left is left, right? We're going to signal to the right, and then we're going to go high beam, and then low beam, and then we're going to go the four-way light, and then they're going to go in the back. Let's see. So then he's going to go to the back, and then the rear lights. For the back, he's going to go right. We're going to go left. We're going to go four-way hazards. Okay, brakes, and then the last one is the tail lights. Then he's going to come around to the front of the bus to the entryway. And he's going to come in, and we're going to finish up here with the driver's mirror. The driver's mirror and all the other mirrors. So I'm going to grab and shake. I'm going to grab and shake the mirror over here. And with the windows, I want to say that there's no missing nuts and bolts. It's properly adjusted, clean, and not cracked. So all the other mirrors are the same. All the other mirrors are the same. Okay, right there. So all the other mirrors over there are the same. For the wipers and washers, okay, so the wipers operate the window washers, which is right here. This is the window washers right there. And to operate the window washers, show the water. I'm going to push that down, activate, and show activate the wipers to show proper operation. And then point to the wiper blades, which are not worn or loose. Point to wiper blades. The wipers are making proper contact with the windshield. The wiper blades are also not worn or loose, torn or cracked, and indicate that the wipers are making proper contact with the windshield. Finally, the climate control defroster, you would turn it all the way and then turn it off. And then the heater is to make sure that you check the airflow. And finally, right here, hit the horn. And if at the end I'm not too sure, then I want to take a moment to ask the examiner to have the cheat sheet so that you can cover anything that you might have You may have forgotten.